Test. Test.
Show us how it works. The latest total will probably go up.
That's better. Hello, everyone. We're almost ready to get started, so I thought before we actually call the meeting to order, I would just quickly remind everyone we have a virtual audience, and we have a handful of people that are making this already kind of complex process work out in the world on the web, so that's pretty cool. So Michael's running the live stream, and in theory, if we have folks in our hybrid audience who want to talk, we will be able to project them if all goes well. Maya Yoder, our new congregational administrator, is our Zoom host, and Christine, our amazing secretary, is she's doing a lot of different things to keep it all running. So, all right, I think we mostly have people settled, and we know we have a quorum already. So I think I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And we're going to switch the first couple things just a little bit. Christine will announce the actual numbers for the quorum in a moment, but I thought we would just start with the chalice lighting and opening words.
These words come to us from Jezebel Anat, who writes, "Let us come into a calm, clear place where we can relinquish our clutter and relax from busyness into being. Let us settle into that calm, clear place where the earth supports our bodies and the community lifts our spirits, and where we can breathe in peace and center ourselves in love. Let us welcome our calm, clear place where our hearts can open and our thoughts can expand beyond the cobwebs of convention into the creative flow of infinity."
Oops, sorry. And Christine will announce semi-official quorum numbers at least.
Hello. We needed 61 to attend. We have 72 in person and 10 online, and we're going to add a few more. So the official number will be in the minutes.
Okay. Speaking of minutes, the first agenda item is to approve the meetings from our December 17th congregational meeting. So basically, as a reminder, all of the voting that we will actually be doing will be online following the meeting during the course of the week. So what we're really doing here is just getting the final wording on the ballot. So what we need is to get the meeting minutes on the floor. First, we need a motion and a second, and then we'll discuss if there are any changes. Would someone like to move approval of the minutes? Larry Ottelhelm moved, and Dave Martin I actually saw first as a second. Larry Ottelhelm, and then Dave Martin. Okay, is there any discussion about the minutes, any wording changes, amendments anyone would like to make? All right, hearing none. We don't, Christine, I don't think we need to actually vote, right? We're just done, right? And it's on, so the wording that has been published will be on the ballot then. Okay, so the next item is recognition of our outgoing leaders. From the Board of Trustees, Rochelle Honey Arcement has been past president this year and acting vice president. Mike Pavlich has been serving as treasurer and finance committee chair, and Diana Henry has been an at-large trustee and also the chair of the Mission and Vision Review Committee. And then on leadership development, Dave Gallagher has been serving as chair and Ron Pyle as nominations chair. If you folks are here, would you stand? So they now get to take, what is it, 5 years off from any significant duties, I think, is the prize. No, we really appreciate their service, and I will especially say about the trustees that any of these folks could have, we changed our term of service from 3 to 2 years last year, and essentially any of them could have chosen to step down at that point, and none of them did. And Mike also not only finished his 3-year term, but signed up for a 4th year because we needed a treasurer. So they did some amazing work. And our leadership development folks really helped us make some of those transitions that I think have been very helpful in reducing the size of the board, reducing our term limits, to really cultivate an atmosphere where more people are excited about serving. So I thank them as well. So the next item is to actually present the leadership nominees for this year, and let's see where my notes are here. Again, what we're really doing is just finalizing the ballot, and the first step is to approve the list of nominees that the Leadership Development Committee has identified. So this process, again, really just requires a motion and a second. In previous years, we've kind of gone through each nominee one by one to do that. Ron and I would like to just do it all in a single motion. So Ron would come up, read the whole list, and we'll get those folks on the ballot. And then after we do that, we can take any nominations from the floor. So if there's no objections, that's kind of what we'd like to do. It really is not much different than what we've done in the past. Is that all right? Okay. So I'll call Ron up.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been an exciting year at the Leadership Development Committee. I think it went a little better this year. Oh, I think it went a little better this year because of the bylaw changes. It'll be interesting going forward to see, as you probably know, the terms have been changed for the board positions, have been changed from a 3-year term to a 2-year term with an option to re-up for a second 2-year term. So it'll be interesting to see going forward how many people re-up, and if they do, that'll help the Leadership Development Committee considerably. So keep that in mind. Yeah, we worked hard and found candidates for all the positions. So I will just read off the slate of candidates, and then we can get a motion and a second at the end for the entire slate. So for Vice President, Sarah Ross, all these board positions have been changed, as I said, to a 2-year term. So Sarah Ross has agreed to be Vice President, and as you know, then the second year, then that would change to the President. And Michael Honey Arsemet has agreed to be Treasurer, and he's been working with Mike Pavlich already, as I understand, to learn the system, so he's kind of almost been a de facto treasurer already. And Ernie Cox is the nominee for the trustee at large. On Leadership Development Committee, Paula Miller and Rochelle Honey Arsemet have agreed to be candidates for leadership development. And Dan Cummins has agreed to continue his term on the Endowment Committee. That's a 5-year term, and Dan is on the committee now. He has served, I believe, around 1 year because of a resignation, a vacancy on that committee before. So he's already plugged in and ready to go on that. So I would like to make a motion to accept all these people on this slate for as candidates for these positions. Do I have a second for that? Phil Beck, I see, has seconded that. So, oh yeah, is there any discussion about that? Yeah. We can. I don't know. Tom asked if we could have the candidates stand and be identified. I don't know how many of them are in the room right now. There's Paula and Ernie and Michael, Honey, and Sarah is back there. Yes. Thank all of you very much for agreeing to contribute, to be an earthworm and contribute to the congregation. Is there any other discussion?
No, I'm going to do that.
Jeff's good, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
So we can also take floor nominees if anyone would like to nominate themselves or others for any of these positions. Are there any nominees from the floor? Okay, so hearing none, we will consider that our election ballot for this year. I did want to mention, that's what I'm trying to remember here. So in addition to the open positions that we're filling right now, Christine Etler is also choosing to step down in September from her secretary role as she focuses on new job opportunities. Christine is also in the situation where she could have stepped down after 2 years right now, essentially, and she is willing to help a new person transition and help with the next election and various things. But so our current plan is to essentially do what we did with the treasurer role this year and name an assistant secretary for the next few months. And that person would help Christine transition the role, and that person would also kind of learn the role. So then in October, the board would presumably appoint that person as interim replacement, and the congregation would then certify in December. So we've found someone who's actually interested in serving in this capacity, but if anyone else would like to be considered, you could reach out to me or anyone on leadership development. All right. So the next item is presentation of some UUS awards that Deb Schollerman and Kathy Hudson-Pillar will make.
Good morning. I'm Deb Schollerman. The Augusta Chapin Meritorious Service Award was created by the board in 2018 and is awarded to a member of the congregation who has sustained a high level of active participation in many groups for an extended period of time. Augusta Chapin was part of the prophetic sisterhood and was a minister at the First Universalist Church in Iowa City from 1869 to 1873. She was the first woman to earn a doctorate of divinity in the United States and the first female settled minister in Iowa City. The two previous recipients of this award are Deb Schollerman and Jim Laughlin. This year's recipient has been a member of UUS since the early 1980s. He has served on almost every committee or team at some point, including the board, endowment, buildings and grounds, hospitality, membership, stewardship, RE teacher, and probably some I don't even know about. He's one of our go-to volunteers when something in the building needs a minor repair, such as a leaking faucet. Some of you may remember at 10 South Gilbert, we had a boiler system for heat. More than once on a cold winter Sunday morning, the boiler did not turn on as it should have. Our award recipient was the first one called to come in and deal with the issue, and he always came. At our new facility, we have no boiler, so his tasks have changed. His jobs now include maintaining order in the shed, climbing on the roof to clear the roof drains every fall, and filling woodpecker holes on the sides of the building. He climbs that ladder well. He has even cleaned out and hosed the dumpster enclosure after the raccoons had a party there one night. We are pleased to present the Augusta Chapin Award to Gary Lawrenson. No, he won't.
The longer Deb talked, the sooner I realized that she was talking about me. That was a surprise, very surprising, because nobody even asked me to come to this meeting. I could be out walking around the grounds trying to pull weeds or something, which is what I would do. Anyway, this is amazing. Thank you.
As Gary's wife, I was just going to suggest maybe a little cot somewhere where he could stop and have a nap. And remind him to drink enough water, please. Thank you.
The Evans Worthley Social Justice Award was established in 2015 and honors someone for a lifetime's social justice work. Evans Worthley was the minister of the First Unitarian Church from 1931 to 1951. He was a community intellectual leader as well as a political and social leader. He worked with a local Baptist minister to integrate restaurants in the Iowa City area. Previous recipients are the Walsrieger family, Gabe Mickelson, Barbara Curtin, and Bonnie Penno. This year's recipient has spent much of her life supporting many social justice causes that include immigrant and refugee justice, prison ministry, and environmental justice. She is an active member of the social justice team at the UUS, 100 Grannies for a Livable Future, the Immigration Action Team, Center for Worker Justice, the Immigration Welcome Center, and has served on the Iowan Steering Committee. She has co-led youth trips to New Orleans to clean up after Hurricane Katrina and 4 intergenerational service learning trips to Guatemala to distribute shoes and plant trees. She works tirelessly to serve those in need. We are pleased to present the Evans Worthley Award to Sally Hartman for her ongoing work for social justice.
Well, Gary's a hard act to follow. I think a lot of people in this congregation have done things that are remarkable. And I just want to acknowledge all of those who have done so much for social justice. And even though, like, I am holding this, I hope you all are holding something in your heart about how you have done so much for others that in need. I really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
I would just quickly acknowledge Deb and Kathy too. There really is no requirement that anyone pay attention to awards or think about who is deserving of them, and they've really taken the initiative to recognize that we have these awards out there and find people who are deserving of them. So thank you too. Okay, I believe we are on the President's report. Please, if anyone at any point finds that I or others are off in the agenda, you can shout out point of order and feel very official in following Robert's Rules of Order. Okay, so to begin my report, most of what I want to communicate I actually put in writing already in my annual report column, which was recently posted online. So I would encourage you to read that, and really the whole annual report when it becomes available soon. So I've received some positive feedback from several people that my report presented an honest portrayal of some of the challenges we've been moving through as a community while also maintaining a sense of optimism. So that was my intention, and I hope that today's meeting leaves you all with a similar feeling. So here, to start with, are 3 examples of things I'm optimistic about. So the first one is actually our finances. In January, the Endowment Committee engaged UU consultant Mark Ewer to begin a visionary rethinking of our long-term stewardship. And that work is really kind of percolating through the Endowment Committee and the Finance Committee and will be kind of a months-long process. But a couple of the points that Mark emphasized are that endowments are not simply rainy day funds, and it is helpful to move beyond one-yearism in budget planning in order to fully support our mission and vision. So sort of at all levels within the congregation, what I've been hearing over the last few months are really a lot of desires to creatively invest in our future rather than simply cutting expenses to make ends meet. And there's some potentially really transformative ideas under consideration that might help make that a reality. So it doesn't mean that we're abandoning our plans to balance the budget, but it does mean that it's not really our primary focus right now while we let some of these possibilities emerge. So the other thing, or another thing that I'm optimistic about is our staffing. So we've been in a period of relatively high staff turnover, although really it's not uncommon for especially folks in part-time roles to not stick around for years. I, for instance, was in a role that I was in for 3 years, and during that period, many people came and left. But I understand that the turnover we've been facing recently has elicited concerns in some of you. The bigger picture for me really is that Reverend Diana and the Personnel Committee have done a remarkable job of restructuring 2 of our key positions, Membership Coordinator and Congregational Administrator. So this hasn't been an easy or simple process, but we are now staffed right about where UUA data suggests we should be for our membership and budget size. The people who previously held the positions have moved on to positions that better align with their own goals, while the reformatted positions better meet our needs while being a great fit for Victoria and Maya respectively. It may be surprising to note that since the beginning of 2023, we've only cut the equivalent of a half-time position. And now that our staffing is better aligned with our budget, we've asked the Personnel Committee to start making salary and benefit recommendations at the very beginning of the budget process so that our professional development goals are centered as a larger priority in our planning. And the third thing I'm optimistic about is shared ministry as a more general concept. While the congregation has practiced shared ministry in many ways in the past, the recent move to a governance model built around shared ministry has proved to be an interesting and not really unexpected challenge. The board has spent a lot of work to first build trust with the minister and each other as we learn to operate within new ranges of authority and accountability. From there, we've been working to establish similar levels of trust and collaboration with our 7 board committees, which comprise another 30 or so lay leaders. So there's about 40 people that we feel like are working in pretty good alignment right now. I think the process is going very well as each group better understands its role and relationship to the whole, while making small policy and procedure adjustments as the need arises. The key element is communication, and our focus now is largely on working with staff and lay leaders on our many and diverse ministry teams to encourage similar types of clarity and collaboration. This part of the process is a little messier and more complicated because of all the people and moving parts involved, but we're poised to make a lot of progress in the near future. So the other thing I wanted to share a little about is some of our thinking of major items over the next couple of years that will occupy some amount of our attention. So this fall, we'll be welcoming a ministerial intern, Bridget Laughlin. She will work with Reverend Diana during most of the congregational year, and she will also be part of the collective effort to cover Reverend Diana's duties in the spring of 2025, during which Reverend Diana will take a 3-month sabbatical. This will be a terrific opportunity for learning and growth for everyone involved, and it will be partially funded by a UUA grant. This fall, we're also exploring ways to develop a shared understanding of some of our congregational history and the way various patterns have played out over time. The larger goal is to develop more resilience and an improved capacity for creative conflict as we move through challenging times, not the least of which will be the November elections. By December, we will hopefully be able to unveil some finance-related plans for 2025. As you may recall, the congregation has called for a balanced 2026 budget, and this timing also coincides with the renewal of our mortgage. It's likely that some sort of strategic initiative will emerge to address both of these issues in some fashion, and the next several months will be an important time of discernment and exploring options, as I was alluding to earlier. We're also due to revisit our mission and vision statements by the end of this year, but we're tentatively planning to push that out a ways till the spring of 2026, given everything else that's happening. So I'll simply close by saying how really grateful I am to continue in this position for another year. I feel a little more energized about the congregation every day, and I'm committed to supporting others, especially Reverend Diana and the board, in feeling the same way too, so that we all sort of graduate from our positions, not taking the kind of sabbatical I was suggesting earlier, but actually reinvesting ourselves in whatever way we see fit. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Reverend Diana.
Thanks, Jeff. When I think about where our congregation was a year ago and where we are today, I am quite impressed by how much has happened in a year and how this congregation has grown and changed. Now, there's a lot that you can read about in the annual report. I'm going to share a few major themes, and I'm going to try to lift up some things that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of, given how communication flows in any large group of people. Many congregations, the vast majority, have been struggling with and working to find new ways to engage with identity, mission, healthy community connections and dialogue, engagement and finances as we continue to emerge from the pandemic and engage with changing social, political, and a religious climate. UUS is in a healthy place, both in and of ourselves, and particularly when we look at the overall context of this country and the status of institutionalized religion. And I hope that you all can hear and appreciate that. People, both those who are already members and those who are just beginning to or have not yet discovered UUS, they need us. As this liberal religious space is a place for people of all ages to engage in spiritual and meaning-making journey, support and connect with each other, and our work in the midst that engages with the larger world. And this is all happening, as Jeff started to lift up, amidst a polarized political climate where people with marginalized identities are being targeted, and our quest to live love fully and fiercely into this world is so needed, as is our commitment to pluralism and the community structures that sustain it. Keeping our mission and vision clearly in the forefront amidst our changing needs in our community in this anxious and divisive time is crucial. And so, based on what's happening in the larger community and in the world, our congregation's needs, and how we might use our congregation's unique gifts and resources to support our members and the wider community in our work of centering and living love, this past summer, in 2023, the board and staff developed a vision of ministry that has helped guide our work this year. Now, you've heard me talk about this a little bit before, and I'm going to be framing what I'm sharing within this. So we focused on making this a year of welcoming, hospitality, and homecoming. That was that first element of our vision of ministry. This included sharing responsibility for welcoming and engaging visitors, making creative use of our building, encouraging members to develop programming, and making programming easily accessible to people with various needs. It also included exploring who we are as Unitarian Universalists, particularly by engaging with the proposed amendments to the Article 2 of the UUA bylaws. When we notice how much more our building is being used this year for a wide variety of programming offered by many different groups and partner agencies, as well as the many newcomers who are attending and joining our congregation, we can appreciate some of the results of this focus. I'm impressed by how folks have taken up the call with offerings like board and committee-led discussions of open questions, our continuing Little Free Pantry, compassionate connection circles, covenant and mind and spirit groups, sound healing, and expanded rentals. I'm also moved by how this call of deepening welcoming has connected with our focus through initiatives like the prison ministry, working with an incarcerated Unitarian Universalist to get Unitarian Universalism designated as a religion, which inmates can receive services for in Iowa prisons. Yes, that was a thing that happened this year. We helped make that happen. The Immigration Action Team expanding our support for refugees to welcome 2 new asylum seekers from Cuba who were here earlier today. And the Social Justice Team continuing our community partner agency program, amongst many other things. Then we also focused on nourishing our resilience as a community, both within our building, as a congregation, and for the wider community. Nourishing resilience as a community included things like creating joyful resistance to the growing extremism in Iowa, building bonds with each other within this congregation and with other groups that are allies, engaging in creative conflict resolution, deepening and respecting diverse spiritual practices, and adapting to climate change. This year, that included things like our congregational and interfaith presence at 2 Pride festivals, where we helped organize an interfaith booth for the first time here, a congregational homecoming kickoff concert with Emma's Revolution, which some of you attended, opening and running the learning space throughout the year, developing a congregational preparedness team that has been doing considerable behind-the-scenes work, including applying for a large grant we're still waiting to hear about. Concerts with groups like Gamelon, community events like a recent trivia night, musicians of all ages helping make music for worship services, further developing our Right Relations team, the Equipping for Action workshop series, all ages religious education, offering Our Whole Lives comprehensive sexuality education for grades K through 2 and 4 through 5 this year. The upper grades will be next year. Supporting concerts through Summer of the Arts, running summer camps, developing our partnership with Johnson County Interfaith Coalition and groups like Suhona, organizing and advocating for an updated hate crimes ordinance in the city of Coralville, and working towards becoming a climate resiliency center. Those are just a few of the ways that we are nourishing resilience. And our third focus for our vision of ministry has been working on practicing personal care and compassion for others. This included things like recognizing the effects of the pandemic and political realities, cultivating sustainable practices, which means doing things in ways that don't exhaust us or wear us down, practicing patience and setting realistic expectations, and resisting perfectionism. This included the Board of Trustees doing considerable work by themselves and with staff on continuing to develop how we're implementing modified policy-based or shared governance, which Jeff also started talking about, a stewardship campaign where members visited some of our membership, pastoral care offered by not only pastoral care associates and the minister, but also by many members of the congregation who made caring commitments to do things like sending cards, taking meals, and visiting folks. Holding memorial services for beloved members who passed away this past year, adult religious education programming like Owning Your Religious Past and Lectio Divina with poetry, spiritual practices programming like Vespers, sound healing, full moon conspiracy, and of course Sunday worship services and connection opportunities. Behind all of this work on our vision of ministry, there has been considerable work on the infrastructure of the congregation. This includes everything from developing our AV and IT teams, which you heard about earlier from Michael, and remember, there are spots out there waiting for you, to working on our bookkeeping systems and finances, to work on discernment, planning, and implementation by our Board of Trustees, Leadership Development Committee, and Endowment Committee, to keeping our building and grounds running. I hope that you'll thank all the people who are involved with all of this behind-the-scenes work. The work of this congregation is also supported by an amazing staff team. This year has included some significant transitions on our team, as Jeff alluded to. Peggy Garrigus left the Director of Congregational and Community Engagement position in June of last year to return to ministry, serving as the minister of the United Methodist Church in Solon. And we are so glad that we could support her until the United Methodist Church was ready to have a lesbian minister here in Iowa again. Right? And of course, we know that it wasn't just us supporting her, but she gave so much to this community. With her departure, we developed a new staffing structures to support our current and expected immediate future needs while working to balance our budget. And so we welcomed Victoria Hewitt, Katie Reardon, and Leah Kaminsky, who we're delighted to have as part of our staff team. In February, Emma Barnum left the Congregational Administrator position for the United Way, and we're grateful that Federico Calderon, who is not here today, has served as our temporary interim office administrator, and a week ago that we welcomed Maya Kerr-Yoder as our new Congregational Administrator. In February, we welcomed Patrick Satter as our new Facilities Coordinator, and some of you have had the pleasure to meet him. In August, Alex Heatland left the music director position to take a dream job in California. And our new music director, Emily Pritchard, who began in September, left in April. Xinghui Liu continues as our talented staff pianist and music outreach coordinator. While she's traveling this summer, she has already, I think, left, is on her way. Kendra Hunt will be our summer pianist. And Nick Kaplan continues serving in a growing role as our Director of Lifespan Religious Education. As Jeff alluded to, I'm also excited to share that this August, Bridget Laughlin will be joining us as our new ministerial intern. Bridget has completed her Master of Divinity, and this internship is one of the next key steps on her journey to becoming an ordained and fellowshipped Unitarian Universalist minister. During her internship, Bridget will be helping with sabbatical coverage while I'm away from February to the beginning of May of 2025. In addition, UUS has agreed to house the part-time community organizer that Johnson County Interfaith Coalition is in the process of hiring. So you'll also be seeing another new face around here in the coming months. I know that all of this transition in staffing has been complicated and sometimes hard to adjust to, particularly in times of such dramatic change and polarization in the larger world. In such times, we long for our congregations to be places of stability, and it is hard when they're subject to the same forces. Even as we're happy when we welcome new people, we miss the old faces. Of course we do. Know that I hold this sadness and complexity with you, and that I am continuing to work with our board and staff to develop our structure so we can continue to thrive and as we live out our mission and vision in a changing world. Please join me in thanking our staff for their amazing work. And as I close, I want to share with you that this congregation is remarkable. The amount that we have done together in the midst of a difficult environment is astounding. We keep coming together to nurture our spiritual development and meaning-making, support and connect with each other, and engage with the wider world in justice-making. As this year ends, I am so grateful to the leaders, staff, and the many members and friends who have nurtured our growing shared ministry, the ways this congregation has committed to listening to and supporting each other over the decades. We have grown in powerful ways this past year, and we are putting in place systems that will allow us to grow in our mission, vision, and community in the future. As we look towards next year, may we lean ever more fully into creating beloved community, into using our congregation's unique gifts and resources to support our members and the wider community in deepening our work of centering and living love. May we continue living love ever more fully and fiercely into this world. Thank you.
Okay, next, Mike Pavlich, our treasurer, will give his report.
I'll be right with you. There we go. Good afternoon. We made it. I've only got 75 pages of notes, so just hang in there. I'm going to complete my 4 years of being your treasurer in about a month. Okay? Pat and I join you in that. Thank you, Michael. What I would like to do this morning is do a brief look back at those 4 years, because it shows, it shows a kind of an interesting journey where we discovered early on a financial problem that we called a systemic deficit problem. We put a plan together. We got through that plan, and now we're at a level, I think, in this year of stabilization, which is really cool. We started, COVID hit in 2020, all right? And we lost a lot of our high-end pledges. We shut down everything. It was a difficult year financially. When we looked at 2021, we realized that the deficits that we saw in 2020 were not unique. We had had deficit spending in this church since it opened. I'll show you more what I mean by a deficit, but when your yearly expenses don't match your yearly income, you've got a deficit. Okay. Anyway, what we did is created a plan, gave it to a committee to look at. What did we call it? BGI, Balance and Growth Committee. Okay, they did a marvelous job. You approved that, and here are the main features of that plan. We said that we would fund full staff and programs for 3 years, 21, 22, and 23. That means we would fund, at that time we had 4 full-time employees, staff, and about 4 to 5 part-timers. We were guaranteeing them 3 years of salary, okay? We knew that would cause deficits, and we decided we would cover those deficits because we had extra money. We had resources. We had extra money in the bank and in our endowments. But we said we were going to stop that this year. Well, we're going to skid to a stop. Middle of last year, you approved that we could skid to 2026 on that thing. But pretty much, we're going to make this plan work. You'll see that it did work, and it's taken us to a place of stabilization. Before I get into those, let's take a look at where we are right now on the next slide, please. I can't read that from here, but I think we're good. Our operating budget at the end of the last month in April stood at $392,000, a very good cash flow sum. How much of that is, quote, extra, not confined to some spending? About $145,000 is undesignated for spending. Most of it is for a $200,000 floor that we want in our bank accounts against financial emergencies. Okay? And actually, we stuck that into a CD this year, so it's going to earn some money for us. Okay? We have endowment stocks, total of about 1.2 million. They are in 5 funds. 4 little funds constitute about 150,000, and the major one, the general endowment fund, right now, or at least in April 30, had 1,049,000. That has 2 pieces to it that the endowment people guard with swords and knives and everything else. Okay? The part that is guarded is called the corpus, and that is the part that cannot be touched. That is the original donation of each donor, plus a cost of living expense year by year added to it. What that leaves us is about $250,000 right now that came from the market expanding, and we call those the earnings. So what we have as resources right now is about 145,000 in the bank and $250,000 in the stocks. That's not bad. We're good, pretty good. Next slide, please, Mike. Again, I can't see it from here, but I trust that Christine has it the way I had asked her to. We'll find out. With this slide, I'd like to show you what we mean by a deficit. Very top line is expenses budgeted. At the beginning, or before the beginning of each year, in November of a preceding year. So for 2021, in 2020, in November, we decided, we put together a budget together, and we said, we are probably, given our commitment to all these staff positions, we're going to probably spend $606,000. That's right. What do we expect? We expect that our pledges would bring in $352,000. ASA is called the spending allowance. What is it? Annual, whatever. It is the amount of the general endowment that we can use yearly in the budget. Rents, we didn't expect any. Other fundraising, about $12,000. If you look at those 4 pieces, those are the income, the annual income. If they don't add up to the expenses, you got a deficit. In this case, we project a maximum deficit of $181,000. Okay, that was in 21. How did it turn out? We actually had a deficit of $125,000. That all came out of the bank. The bank had a lot of funds left over from bringing the building together. There were all kinds of money sitting around. We gathered it all in the bank. Okay. Just to show you something else, in 2020, the year I don't have up there, that's the COVID year, it looked about the same. Coming into that year, they expected a fairly low deficit, although they didn't talk about it as a deficit, but it turned out to be about $130,000. Okay? They covered that with an extra ASA draw from the endowments, plus a wonderful PPP loan from the government. Chris Rohde got that for us. Okay? So, that's what we mean by deficits. They are systemic to this building since it opened. 2022, you can see the numbers. Almost $600,000 again, anticipated deficit of $95,000. Actual deficit at the end of the year, if you calculate it, we were $50,000 that we had to pull out of our resources. And we pulled $5,000 out of the bank and an extra $45,000 out of endowments. Okay? But if we look at those numbers, you can see that, number one, pledges went up. Okay? ASA, the stock 5% stock pool that we could use went up. So in 2023, we expected, we're going to really crack this thing. Okay? Next slide, please. Does that say 2023? Okay, good. We didn't crack it. This is the disappointing thing that we talked about, I guess 18 months ago. All right. We found that pledges did not go up. The stewardship committee set us a ceiling of $440,000. We didn't get anywhere near it. Okay? The ASA dropped because the market started to crash. Okay? Rents and camp held up. Other fundraising was not bad. We anticipated $101,000 as a deficit. In reality, it was only $40,000. And we covered that all from endowments. Okay, what do we learn about ourselves from these numbers? I think the thing that we learned is we didn't become the mega church we thought we would. All right? We have a nice, beautiful building and we're using it well, as these folks have said. But we are still a small community, a medium-sized community. Pledges of $400,000 a year are expected of a medium-sized community, and that's where we are. That's who we are. So we've got to live with that. Not live with that, celebrate it. We're doing fine for our size, okay? Fundraising. The two bright spots in 2023 were that we started to get rentals. Rentals that hit. Sue Kahn did get her $10,000 in for rentals that we had asked her to get. More importantly, Nick started the day camps. We expected those to break even at best. They didn't. They were inundated with little kids and running around the yard and doing their things, and they were profitable. So that's very good, okay? But we still have not done much about that $100,000 deficit. Then, as you all know, in the middle of 2023, that wonderful lady, Peggy, said, I am going to become a minister in Solon. I have completed my accreditation. They want me there. Thank you. It's been wonderful, but here's my salary back. That's the way I saw it as a treasurer, okay? And then the question is, what do we do with her salary? That gift back. Well, the board decided we use it primarily to cut our expenses. So, we did not rehire that position. We used 1/4 of the money that Peggy handed back to us to hire 2 part-time people, Victoria and Katie. And then Reverend Diana started spreading the work around, and we had to drop some, and it got a little chaotic at times, but it got done. And if we now go to 2024, then the last column over there, you'll see our expenses have dropped by over $60,000. Okay? That is remarkable and wonderful. I keep saying Peggy is the most wonderful lady who ever came into this church for doing that for us. The other thing I want to bring up, okay, so yeah, let's stop at that point. Reverend Diana has talked about Victoria and Katie joining us. They have been marvelous additions to the staff. Taking care of communications and new members, just beautifully. So that's working. So, we built a budget for 2024 that has, the one that we're in now, has a maximum deficit if we spend everything of about $43,000. But if you look back on the other budgets, we never really spent it all. The maximum budget and our deficit and the real deficit were separated, okay? So we didn't spend it all. And I expect, given the way things are flowing right now, that we're going to end up with a real deficit of about $20,000 this year, which Michael will tell us about in December, okay? That's very nice. We're stabilizing, folks. We're stabilizing. I want to, okay, let's get back to the other one, just as a by the way. Remember that in February of this year that Emma decided that that she was going to move on to a place that gave her more ability to grow as a professional administrator of nonprofits. So she took a job with United Way. And Michael and I had to learn QuickBooks real quick because she was taking care of all of that. Frederico stepped in and helped manage the office and the data input. And now Maya is hired to do that stuff for us. So we're stabilizing. Okay, and welcome, Maya. Okay, last slide, please. Looking forward, I am very excited, as these two people were when they talked about who we are and where we're going. I think this new staffing model, we're down from 4 full-time people to 2 and a 3/4 time, okay? And a fair number of part-time people. That new staffing model gives us flexibility and is more in keeping with who we are, which is a medium-sized community with a real nice building, okay? Endowments are being rethought. They're working with, the endowment committee is working with Mark Ewart out of UAA, the guy who helped us raise the money for this building, to see how we can relook at endowments, to grow them and make them more available for our mission, more consistently available to work our mission. And that's encouraging. Rentals. Is Sue Kahn here? Thank you, Sue. Sue has built rentals from 0 2 years ago to 10,000 last year. We gave her a goal of 10,000 again. She already met it in the first 4 months of this year. Sue could very much use probably some volunteers to help her with the work. So think about it. It's a wonderful ministry. It shows our building to other people, and it does bring in cash. Okay. The camps, Nick's camps, are a huge hit with young families. We're getting young families in, little kids running all over the place. That's wonderful. And they're profitable. They are making us a profit, okay? Those two things give me a great deal of hope. The auction team, which has held us up over these first several years of the building being open, is exhausted and took a deep breath and said, maybe we only do auctions every other year, just so they have a little more pizzazz to them instead of every year. And so they configured themselves into what they called the Fun and Fundraising Committee. They want us to have fun together. This last weekend, we had a trivia night. We had fun together. When I talked to people about the trivia night the next day, all we talked about was the questions we missed, okay? Judy and Sue are heads of that. They could use some help. The only thing that I want to bring up on the negative side is that we still have a mortgage, and our current contract runs out in about 18 months. And we're going to have to renegotiate that at higher interest rates. Okay? So that, as Jeff said, is probably going to be a part of the discussion of redoing endowments, putting all of those thoughts together and how we best handle all of that. Okay? That's all I have for you. It's been a pleasure, my friends. Thank you.
You want to stay up here in case there's a...
Yeah. And if there's a question, repeat it in my left ear.
Okay. Okay, so I'm looking at my notes only because I'm remembering. Why don't we do questions, and then Christine wants to make a brief announcement about the elections. Okay, so the only thing that I'm more grateful for than Mike's service is Michael being willing to step into this role. Thank you, Michael. So we have some time. It's 11:25, maybe 10 or so minutes of questions. What did I say? I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still on some other time zone, I guess. 12:25. Maybe a few minutes at least of questions from any of you. If you have questions for Mike or Reverend Diana or me or anything. So we do have people with microphones, so make sure we speak into those so the hybrid audience can hear us.
Just a quick question. Why is the projection for fundraising down almost $7,000 for this year? It looked like it went from 25 last year to 17.5 this year.
Why is the projection for fundraising down $7,000? Did that make sense?
The projections are meant to be conservative so that we have a clear idea of if things go wrong where we are. Okay? I do believe they're going to come in above that. Yeah.
And also the auction. It was also the auction.
The auction is...
Oh, yeah. I'm not quite sure whether the auction committee is going to hold an auction, but that's what they're planning tentatively now. Okay? And that often really brings us out. And Gary, who's got an award for owning the Elvis singing head, will put that up for auction again.
I would maybe follow up on that just briefly and say that there were a couple of years when the Finance Committee was dealing with a bigger deficit where there were sort of some stretch goals, some new programs that hadn't been developed, and it was sort of like, we want to make $20,000 and we don't know how it's going to happen. So at the point we're at now, the board has actually asked the Finance Committee, or given our sense that we don't want to keep doing that. We would rather be conservative and not pressure people like the auction committee and others that, we really want you to meet this stretch goal. So then hopefully what Mike is showing is that at the end of each year we've actually done better than we expected, but we're not aiming too high to begin with, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, well, and I'll just add, the reason I shouted out auction was because at the end of last year when we were making the budget, we knew that the auction committee, team was thinking that there would not be one this year. So that money dropped out of the budget, and then everything that Mike and Jeff have said followed from that. So.
Good, thank you.
There are many moving parts to all this, as you can see. Any other questions? Wow. I have questions. I could ask some questions. Gary, Peg, you want to get Gary the mic?
Mike, I'm curious, how much of a mortgage do we have?
What, did you hear him?
When the mortgage comes due in a year and a half, we will still have $680,000 to owe the bank out of the over about $1 million plus that we borrowed. Okay. When I renegotiated that contract in 2020, I knew we were cash poor, so I did not set us in a path where we were paying a lot of the principal back. Right now, we pay $60,000 a year to the bank. Half of that goes to principal, half of that goes to interest.
Any other questions? Oh, now we had some hands. Okay, I saw Phil first, and then Sally next.
This is a quick one. How successful was trivia night? Do you know?
How successful was trivia night?
Oh, yeah. Again, the disappointing thing is that we were hoping to get a lot of people from outside the community to come in, but it didn't happen. So the 40-some people who stayed for trivia were us. But we still cleared over $1,000. So that was fun. And fundraising.
I like the idea of the fun and fundraising that's spread out throughout the year. However, I'm wondering how that will impact other groups in the church, like social justice, for their efforts, because it seems like it'll be more crowded with fundraising.
Maybe could you clarify a little bit about what you mean by more crowded?
Yeah,
The calendar being more crowded?
Yeah, so for the Immigrant Action Team, we will be required to raise $5,000 before the end of before April next year, and we will need to have events and so on, but if there's already fundraising events, then how do we fit in there?
So Sue is eagerly wanting to answer. Peg, could you get Sue the mic?
Sally. Okay, one of the goals of the fund and fundraising is to work with groups within the congregation, like work together on fundraising events. So, Sally, you and I need to talk. We're planning 4 events a year, 1 per quarter. One of them is to try to get outside people into our church. One is for us to play together with each other and have fun. And then a couple more that would be working with other groups in the church. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that we're not seeing overlapping or competing fundraising, things like that.
Dave Martin.
Jeff, I just wanted to thank you for your leadership this past year of moving parts. So I think you deserve a round of applause from all of us.
I appreciate that. And one thing I had thought about noting today is General Assembly is coming up, and we do have 7 delegates headed there. Dave is one of them. One thing that's kind of come up in the process of getting those folks registered and organized is that we as so some congregations have come to a congregational consensus about how they feel about Article 2 and are directing their delegates how to vote. We didn't really do that kind of formal process, but if folks have input on their feelings about Article 2, I have set up an email list to contact folks, and I'm sure they're open to your input. If folks wanted to organize some kind of conversation congregationally, that is certainly possible. It's not something I have the capacity to do right now, and probably the board is not going to organize that in the next month. Okay, but certainly input could be provided to our delegates if you choose to. Any other questions? We're now at 11:30 something, so. Oh, I'm sorry, and this is, gosh, okay, so Christine does want to make a brief announcement. Thank you, Christine, for reminding me.
Hello. Oops. So we're going to move on to the election phase, and between 3 and 5 p.m. today, you will get your online election invitation from Election Buddy. You'll receive an email with an individual link and voting key. The vote will be open until 5 p.m. next Friday, well, this Friday. Those who have chosen to vote via paper ballot should mail in or turn in your ballot by 5 p.m. Friday. If you do not receive your Election Buddy meeting invitation, you can email me, Christine Etler. My email is in the voting packet and online in Realm. If you would like to switch your voting method, you may also do so by contacting me. This means if you have a paper ballot, you can turn it in and I'll cancel the vote and spoil the vote, and you can vote online. Or we can switch the other way too. Okay, thank you.
All right, I haven't seen eager hands going up, so if anyone has any burning question, you're welcome to ask. Otherwise, we are at closing words.
Well, before I share some closing words from Rainier Maria Rilke with you, after the service today and sitting here looking at this art piece that we did and that missing space, I was thinking there are all sorts of metaphors for that missing space. Pick your own, whether that is the space that is waiting for you or this space that we are constantly holding for community. Pick your metaphor. Keep that with you. Rainier Maria Rilke wrote, "Be patient towards all that is unsolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. Like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers, which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer." Let's extinguish our chalice, but not of the light of love or the warmth of community. All these we carry with us today and all days.
All right, since there are no more items on the agenda, unless there are objections, I will adjourn the meeting and turn you loose into this beautiful day. All right, be free.